Level 1, the draft year 23, 4 years into a design degree that costs more than a house down payment, and it's landed you at a copy shop making $11 an hour. Wedding invitations, menus, yard sale flyers. 40 hours a week running paper through machines worth more than your education, making things nobody will keep past a Tuesday. Your roommate Wes works the same shift, same wage, different eyes. Where you see equipment, Wes sees an opportunity nobody else at the shop has noticed. He shows you one night after close something he printed on the store's laser rig once everyone else had gone home. You hold it up to the light out of habit, the way 2 years of studying print quality has trained your hands to do before your brain catches up. It's wrong. Not wrong in a way most people would clock. Wrong in the way that only someone who has spent 2,000 hours staring at ink saturation and paper grain would catch. You tell him it won't pass. He says that's exactly why he showed you. He needs the eye. He needs someone who can see what's off and knows how to fix it, someone with your training and, not incidentally, your debt. You say no. He says so does the loan servicer every month whether you say no or not. You don't answer that. And by the weekend, you've quietly started correcting his color balance anyway, telling yourself it's just a technical exercise, the kind of problem solving you were trained for and never got to use. It gets better. Not right. Better. Wes tests at first a gas station. Late, a pack of gum, exact change for a lie. Nobody blinks. You test yours a few days later at a self-checkout where the machine doesn't have hands to feel anything with. It takes your bill and gives you real money back like it's nothing. Over 2 months, the two of you build a small, quiet habit out of it, a rule of thumb about where people look closely and where they don't, a rotation so no single cashier sees your face twice. The first few times, your pulse doesn't come down for the better part of an hour after. By the 40th time, it's a few seconds. By the 100th, nothing at all. Wes never calls it what it is. He calls it the file, like it's still sitting in a folder on a desktop, like you're still just two designers workshopping a project. The language does a lot of work keeping the thing bearable. Level 2, the weight the design is solid. The problem now is everything the design can't fix the feel of it in someone's hand. Real currency has a fiber blend that no laser printer paper will ever replicate, and anyone who spent years behind a register develops a kind of muscle memory for the difference. A worn bartender. A teller who's touched 10,000 bills this month alone. They don't need to look. They just know. Wes tracks down a source for paper stock that gets you meaningfully closer, not perfect, but close enough that it survives a casual handling. Your cost per bill climbs, but so does what you can get away with. You start experimenting with higher denominations, because the return on each successful pass goes up even though the exposure stays roughly the same. You start learning the unwritten map of where scrutiny lives. Some places move fast and don't have the patience to check. Some places have a culture of catching things, and you get better and better at reading which is which before you ever hand anything over. Wes, meanwhile, develops his own quiet expertise in making something new look like it's already lived a little nothing you'd call a science, just a feel he's built up, the same way you built up yours. You settle into a rhythm. Certain days for making, certain days for aging, certain days for spending, never the same place twice in a stretch. You keep a running list in your head and eventually in an app on your phone of where trust is cheap and where it isn't. You both quit the copy shop the same week. You tell your old manager you're going freelance. It isn't a total lie you are designing something. Wes tells people he's taking up photography, and it's not a lie either, because he starts documenting every piece the two of you make, studying his own results like a craftsman refining a technique, treating the whole thing with the seriousness of an apprenticeship that happens to be a federal crime. 8 months in, you've made more money between the two of you than either of your degrees ever promised. Your rent is current for the first time in years. The version of your life that pays for it doesn't have a name you'd say out loud at your parents' table. Level 3. The middleman, a man named Grant, finds you through Wes. Grant doesn't make anything, and he doesn't spend anything himself. He buys in bulk, cheap, and moves it through a network of people spread across 3 different cities. You produce. Grant buys. His people handle the rest. Your hands never touch a register again. Grant isn't like Wes. Wes loves the craft of it, the ink, the color, the small technical victories. Grant only cares about throughput, how much, how fast, how reliably. He talks in numbers where Wes talks in texture, and the arrangement changes the shape of the whole operation. You move out of the apartment you shared with Wes. Separate leases, separate lives on paper, a habit that isn't really a plan so much as an instinct that grows the more money moves through the operation. The two of you stop talking about logistics directly. Everything routes through messages that erase themselves. The only place your lives still overlap is a storage unit, leased in Wes's name, that quietly becomes the actual operation while your own address stays boring and clean. You upgrade your equipment. The output scales. You split long shifts with Wes, one of you handling the technical side, the other handling the finishing touches, and the money that comes back through Grant after his cut is more than the copy shop ever paid you, though somehow the risk has stopped registering as risk. It just feels like a schedule now. Make, finish, deliver, repeat. Grant starts pushing for the highest denomination, the one you'd both avoided, because it draws the most attention and the most scrutiny. He says his people know how to move it in the kind of places where cash flows too fast for anyone to slow down and check. You spend 2 weeks getting it right, and when it's done, it's the best work you've ever produced, sharper than anything 4 years of tuition ever pulled out of you. Wes photographs it from every angle and pins the print to the wall of the storage unit like a gallery piece nobody will ever be allowed to see. Then Grant gets greedy. He starts pushing too much volume through too small an area, and businesses start noticing a pattern in the same few zip codes. A cluster of reports becomes a flagged cluster, and a flagged cluster becomes exactly the kind of thing that a 150-year-old federal agency, one whose original mandate, long before it ever guarded a president, was hunting down counterfeit currency, is built to chase down. Wes sees the warning signs before you do. A local news segment, a shop owner holding a bill up to the camera, describing it in enough detail that Wes recognizes his own work in it. He calls and says it's time to stop. You call Grant and say the same. Grant tells you to relax. Grant says his network is solid. It's the same thing people always say right before it isn't true. Level 4, the sketch the investigation doesn't start with you. It starts with the people passing the bills, works up through Grant, and lands on the storage unit, the equipment, the materials, the drives full of templates, thousands of finished and unfinished sheets, and Wes's entire photographic record of every piece he ever made, dated and organized like an artist's portfolio. He documented his own crime in more detail than the investigators could have hoped for. He's there when it happens. You're not. You're across town, in a studio that has never once been connected to him on any lease, any bill, any record. You find out only when he stops answering his phone, and then when the story breaks with an address attached to it, and the address is his. Grant is picked up 2 days later and starts talking almost immediately the supply routes, the schedules, the volume, everything except the one name he never had because he never met you and never needed to. Wes never gives you up either. He doesn't have to be asked twice. It's simply not something he was ever going to do. The distance between you and the storage unit wasn't a plan so much as the accidental byproduct of how the two of you had quietly split the risk without ever saying so out loud. Wes pleads guilty. Manufacturing, possession, conspiracy, the total is large enough that the number itself becomes part of the story on the news. He stands in front of a judge who asks if he understands the charges, and he says yes, and he gets 7 years. You don't visit for months. When you finally do, he's thinner, and he tells you the food is bad, and he tells you 7 years is longer in person than it sounds out loud. You tell him you're sorry. He tells you not to be. He tells you the work was good, that if he had it to do again, he wouldn't change a thing about how he approached it. He says this, the way someone talks about a piece they're still proud of, from inside a place built to make sure he never touches ink again. You end up back at a print shop, a different one, $12 an hour, running the same kind of machine on the same kind of paper. A customer hands you a bill after lunch one day, and you hold on to it a beat too long, checking it without meaning to the weight, the texture, the way the color shifts when you tilt it. It's real. You know real now in a way most people never have to learn, because you spent 2 years training yourself on what fake feels like. The customer notices you pause and asks if something's wrong. You say no. Force of habit, you tell them. They laugh. You don't, because you already know you'll be doing this for the rest of your life, checking every bill that ever passes through your hands, out of a reflex that only the people who used to make the fake ones ever really develop. Wes calls sometimes on the weekends. He mentions once that he's been drawing pencil, paper, the only material they let him have, and that he sketched $100 bill from memory, every detail intact, before a guard noticed and took it away. Even a drawing of money looks like a problem when you're 7 years into paying for having printed it. You close the shop at 6 most nights. You count the register twice, not because once isn't enough, but because you've never fully trusted a stack of bills since the year you spent making some yourself. Every note in the drawer is real. You still check every single one. The work you did with Wes was, by any technical measure, the best either of you ever produced. That's the part that stays with you, not that it was a crime, but that it was good, and that being good at the wrong thing cost you both everything the skill was supposed to earn you.